So before we deep dive into all of the breaking stories from the last 24 to 40 hours, including stories like Juan Soto rejecting an offer from the Nationals, Matt Harvey of all people is in court, and a former superstar has retired from the game of baseball, I just wanted to remind you guys that 73 days ago today, Robert Manfred voluntarily imposed a lockout. Reminder, a lockout is not necessary for CBA negotiations to go on behind the scenes, and officially spring training is delayed because it would have happened today. Today was the day that pitchers and catchers were supposed to report, and a reminder, the lockout is completely unnecessary. So this was a cold, calculated risk from Robert Manfred and the owners, and it backfired because now baseball is officially delayed, and the only people that suffer, us, the fans. And I'm so upset. Either way, we're going to try and contain our emotions and talk about the juicy things that have happened over the last 2 days, including a breaking story. Ryan Zimmerman, one of my favorite players over the last decade and a half, he has announced his retirement. He was the first ever draft pick by the Nationals. He's a World Series champion. If we talk about his career accomplishments, he just fell short of 300 home runs and 2,000 hits, and he ends with about 40-ish WAR over on Baseball Reference. So he is not going to make the Hall of Fame, but he is definitely in the Hall of Very Good. One of the best guys in Major League Baseball as well. I'm going to miss seeing him because at his peak, dude might have been the best right-handed hitter aside from Mike Trout in all of baseball for a couple years, because you can't really include Ryan Braun because you know what Ryan Braun was doing behind the scenes. Now, speaking of the Nationals, Juan Soto, this is according to a lot of reports, and I guess it was confirmed by Juan Soto himself. He was offered a 13-year, $350 million contract before the lockout went into place. So this was back in early October, maybe even into November, and he rejected it. And you know what? Good for him. A lot of you might be thinking, Fuzzy, what are you talking about? Juan Soto rejecting a $350 million extension? That is stupid. That is life-changing money for 99% of the people watching this video, because we all know Jeff Bezos is watching because he's a big-time baseball fan. Obviously, I'm being facetious, but Juan Soto, if he actually accepted this contract extension, he would be getting about $23.5 million for the next 13 seasons. That is not what Juan Soto should be paid on a season-to-season basis. He has I can't even believe I'm even reading this. When I actually looked at the stats, Juan Soto has a .471 on base percentage over his last 200 games, a combined 185 OPS plus, which means that he's 85% better than the average hitter, and he almost has a 10 Baseball Reference WAR over those last 200 games. All of that calculated down to a season-by-season estimate of how much he should get paid. He's worth about $35 to $40 million, not 23.5 like the Nationals offered him back in October/November. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you make of this extension offered by the Nationals, and what do you make of Juan Soto rejecting 13 years, $350 million? Again, a lot of people are being rubbed the wrong way. Billionaires versus millionaires, they should just sign the deal and get the lockout done and give us baseball. It's a whole lot more complicated than that. These guys, they have a skill that none of us have. So it's not Juan Soto's fault that he was blessed by the gods and the baseball gods that he could be the best hitter in baseball. No, he worked hard. He's at a point in his career where he is the best at his craft, and that craft pays people millions and millions of dollars. So not to be condescending, but we can't relate to him turning down $350 million because none of us are going to be in that situation. So again, I'm not trying to be condescending. I just don't want Juan Soto to end up like Ronald Acuna Jr. or Ozzie Albies, where they accept a long-term deal, but they undersell themselves in terms of their AAV, how much they're getting paid per season. Juan Soto, $23 million, that's not a slap in the face because still it's a ton of money, but he's definitely worth 35 to 40 in my estimation. Don't be like Albies. Actually negotiate your contract properly and have a good agent, because Ronald and Ozzie, they should have fired their agents in my opinion. Moving on over to a story that is going to get a little bit muddy. Now, if you are someone who has dealt with substance abuse in the past, or you're just a big time Tyler Skaggs fan, I do want to warn you, because Matt Harvey, he was subpoenaed by the government and he had to testify at the Eric K trial. If you're not familiar with Eric K, most of you won't be, but he is the dude that has pretty much been He has been labeled the guy that cost Tyler Skaggs his life. He supplied the items that could be abused by Tyler Skaggs, as well as other players, including Matt Harvey and CJ Cron. Those are the two biggest names that I could find. And other players, including Cam Bedrosian, he took them, but he said he didn't feel right, so he stopped taking them, obviously. So Harvey and Cron, those are the biggest names. They admitted to accepting them in some capacity. Matt Harvey actually went on to tell stories from his prior days in New York, the fact that he has been a substance abuser for quite some time, and considering his burst onto the scene and the fact that the Mets were aware of his situation, I feel like the Mets let him down, as well as Major League Baseball, because it's one of those things that Major League Baseball is going to test for steroids randomly, but in regards to opioids and substance abuse issues like this, they only test a player if there's ample evidence, or if it's brought to their attention by someone else in the clubhouse. The Mets knew about this and they tried to get him help, but obviously they didn't try hard enough, and to me, they let the guy down. A lot of people are piling on Matt Harvey. I know that personal accountability is always needed, but the Mets knew about this, Major League Baseball I'm sure knew about this, and nothing was really made of it because Matt Harvey continued to use when he was on the Angels, but he has been a guy that has had an issue for a long time. And again, I feel like the system in place needs to change, where it's got to be a lot like steroids, where they have random testing, because we have to keep these guys safe from themselves, because a lot of money is involved, a lot of fame is involved, and just like Johnny Manziel, sometimes partying becomes the forefront. So yes, you can blame Manziel and Harvey for partying and prioritizing that over baseball, but sometimes it becomes an addiction. Sometimes they really hate themselves for it, like Matt Harvey stated, but that's not my story to tell. That is not Terry Collins' story to tell. He went off on an interview and it was really disheartening, because Matt Harvey, he said that his lowest point was he wanted to not be here anymore, and I just can't imagine being at that point. So all of the dogpiling that has happened, I'm not a fan of that. Matt Harvey, he has just been released from the Orioles, so things can't really get much worse for the guy. But that pretty much does it for today's video. Let me know what you think of Robert Manfred imposing a voluntary lockout, which has resulted in a delayed spring training. They would have reported today, so it's official. Ryan Zimmerman has announced his retirement from the game, and his former teammate Juan Soto rejected a 13-year, $350 million extension. Good for him, in my opinion. He deserves more. And Matt Harvey, he testified at the Eric K trial, and I believe that Eric K is going to be, he's donezo for a long time. So again, that does it, and enjoy random moments in MLB history to close today's video. I know we were a little bit more serious. I'm sorry for that, but we got to talk about these things.
That is absolutely